All right. Here we go. This is the problem. 2610. Convert an array into 2D array with conditions. So you're given an integer array nums. So we're given an array with integers inside of it. You need to create a 2D array from nums, satisfying the following conditions. The 2D array should contain only the elements in the array nums. So it should only contain the elements from the array that we were given and passed into the function. Each row in the 2D array contains distinct integers. So you can see the array that we were given is 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1. So there's 3 ones, but none of the arrays in our 2D array have more than 1, 1. You're only allowed to put distinct integers in different arrays. So you can see the first subarray is 1, 3, 4, 2. So 1, 3, 4, 2. Then we still have a 1 and a 3, 1 left. So we take our 1, 3, we put that there. We still have a 1 left, and we put our 1 there. So we're basically categorizing the elements we were given into subarrays with distinct values. The number of rows in the 2D array should be minimal. So we want to have the least number of rows possible. And so we want each one of these subarrays to be the largest we could possibly make it while keeping the elements inside of them unique. And then return the resulting array. If there are multiple answers, return any of them. So you could return any combination, just so if you have a different strategy or method of solving this problem, like order doesn't matter. And then note that the 2D array can have different number of elements on each row. So this one is like 4, 2, 1. It could be 1, 2, 4. Like, it doesn't matter. Both will pass as long as they are distinct. And it's the minimum number of rows possible. So you can see in this first example, we have 7 elements. We have 1 is repeated 3 times. That's the integer that's repeated the most times. So we know we're going to have 3. You could basically take like what element is repeated the most amount of times, and that's how many rows we're going to have. Like if we had 4 4s, we're going to have 4 rows. If we had 7 10s, we're going to have 7 rows. You know, so whatever number is showing up the maximum number of times, that's how many rows we're going to have. And then we create a 2D array that contains the following rows: 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 3, and 1. All elements of nums were used, so you have to use all of them. And each row of the 2D array contains distinct integers, so it is a valid answer. It can be shown that we cannot have less than 3 rows in a valid array. If we had less than 3 rows, then either this 1 would be in here with the other 1, so they wouldn't be distinct, or this 3 would be in here with the other 3, so it wouldn't be distinct as well. This is the minimum number of rows that is possible, 3, because we have 3 1s. The second one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these values are distinct. There's no repeats, and so we're able to just put them all in one subarray. All elements of the array are distinct, so we could keep all of them in the first row of the 2D array. And then if we're looking at the length of this nums array that we're being given, it's going to be anywhere from 1 element to 200 elements, which is very small. And which this is kind of what makes it an easy problem, because you could do a brute force solution if you really had to with length, an array length this small. This is typically the constraints you see on an easy problem. And then the value of each element is going to be anywhere from 1 to the length of the array. So if the length is 200, then there could be a 200 in here or whatever. Yeah, so there are, regardless of the solution that you use, I did think of a couple other solutions. I didn't really think through them. I just went with one solution, and I'm going to go ahead and break that down for everybody who's like, what do we do next? And for those who feel comfortable giving it a shot, feel free to do that as well. I'm going to go ahead and create the live shared link. So for anyone who wants to hop into my code editor and code along, you can feel free to do that. Does anyone have any questions about the problem? Does anyone understand the problem? I'll go ahead and start a walkthrough for. All right. I knew you would. Does anyone else have any questions on this problem as far as like understanding? All right. So basically what I want to do is I'm given this array, right? And with this array here, I need to output an array. I need to output an array that looks like this. So how do I get from here to here? And the method that I used is there's 3 pieces for this one. So we're going to use a map, and we're going to use a map to store frequencies. We are going to use an array, and we're going to use the array because this yellow array here, that's our output array. So as an output, we need the array. Once I have these frequencies, I'm going to have to iterate over the frequencies, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Let me just go through the first step first. So what I want to do first is I want to take these elements that exist inside the array that we were given. So this array right here, and I want to store them in a map, and I want to store their frequency inside of a map. And so when I create my map, which is just an object, I'm going to iterate over this nums array, and the first one I encounter is 1. Does this 1 exist on my map? No. So I'm going to add the element and the number of instances. So I encountered a 1, and I encountered it 1 time. Then I go to the next one, 3. Is there a 3 in this map yet, in this object? No.
No.
Exactly. So I add it, and its count is now 1. Then I go to 4, and I add the 4. And then I go to 1. Now we do have a 1. So instead of adding 1, I just increment our current value of 1 to 2. Then I come across a 2. We don't have a 2 yet, so I set that to 1. Then I come across a 3. I already have the 3. Yep. 2. And then I come across the last one. 3. And so now I have the map. Now I have a map with the count of variables. So if I iterated over this map and I just said for each number in this map, and I found out the value of each one, and I just found out what the max was in here. Like, what's the max? 3, 2, 1, or 1? The max is 3. So if I just iterated over this map and I found out that the max was 3, I know that I need 3 subarrays, because I can't have any of these ones in the same subarray. So I know I'm going to have whatever the max is in here, that's going to be my number of subarrays. So basically what I'm going to do, my strategy is I want to iterate over this map, but I want to iterate over this map until this map is empty. So I want to run it dry, basically. And so while this map has values inside of it, I want to create an array. a subarray. So one of these ones with the purple brackets, create a subarray. And for every element in here, I want to add that element to the subarray. So let's say I have my first subarray, right? So I have, let's just say I have my output array, which is this whole array. And then I have subarray 1, which is the first subarray I'm building that I'm actually going to add to this output array. So I iterate over here. 1, it's 3. So what I do is I add 1 to this, and I decrement that. Then I go here. 3, there's 2 of them. So I add 3, and I decrement that. Then I go here. I have a 4. I add that. But since this is 1, I know that this 4 that I just added is the only one I can add. Since this value is 1, I actually delete this from the map. And then I go to the 2. I add the 2. And since this is 1, I also delete this from the map. And so now I have my subarray. I iterated over this map for the first time. I'm at the end. I take this subarray and I push it onto my output array. And now I iterate over this again because I'm iterating over this map while it has values, and it does still have 2 values in it. It has 1s and it has 3s. And so I reinitialize my next array. I iterate again. I come across a 1. I add it. This is not 1, so this is going to stay. I'm not going to delete it from the map. I'm just going to decrement it. And then I come across my 3. I add it. And this one is 1, so I delete it from the map. And then I have my second subarray. I've completed my iteration through the map for the second time, and I push it onto my output. And then last thing, I'm still iterating over this map while it has values. And so I'm creating my third subarray. Starts off as empty. I'm encountering the 1, pushing it on. Since the 1's value is 1, I'm deleting it from the map. I iterated over the whole map. I push it onto my output array. And since I'm only iterating over this map while it has values, and now it doesn't have values, I'm done with this while statement. I have the output array that I need. This is exactly what I was expecting it to look like. It matches, and so I output my array. I'm going to go ahead and write the pseudocode, and I want to challenge someone to actually write out this code. So even if you're new, even if you don't have experience doing this type of stuff, let me actually keep that. I want everyone to give it a shot. And so the first thing I do is I create a map. So create a map to store frequencies. We iterate over the nums array, storing its frequencies in our map. Then we create our result or output array, whatever you want to call it. That's our final array that we're going to output. And then we iterate over our map until there are no more frequencies left, or I guess no more values left. While inside this while loop, we want to do what we did right here. And so I want to first create our row. So new array. And then I want to iterate over our map. So iterate over map. Something to keep in mind is we're going to need to access the number and the count. because we need to know if the count equals 1. If the count equals 1, then we're going to delete it. If it doesn't equal 1, if it's greater than 1, then we just decrement. So that's something we're going to need both of these as we create this for loop right here. Just remember that we need this num and we need the count. So once inside the loop, we want to push the num onto our row. So this right here, we want to push it onto there. Then we want to check our count. If our count is equal to 1, let me not write any code. I want it to be all English and you guys could figure out the syntax. If it's equal to 1, then I guess I'll make it a little more clear. Delete it from our map. That should be good. We'll just delete it from our map. And then else, if it is not, actually we'll just say else because that doesn't matter. If it's not equal to 1, then that means it's greater than 1. Because if it ever comes equal to 1, it's never going to be less than 1. It's either going to be greater than 1 or equal to 1. So if it is greater than 1, it's not equal to 1, then we will just reduce its value by 1. So decrement. And then once we're done iterating over our map, so iterate over our map until there are no values left, then actually iterate over our map. So in here, in the while loop, but not inside of this one. We want to be inside of here, but not inside of here, like right after this. Then we want to go ahead and push our row, our new array, onto our result or output array, whatever you want to call it. And then when we delete our values from our map, so much so that there are no values left on our map, we're done with our while loop, and we just return our output array. And I'll just put that there so we have our output. And that is this array right here. So who's in here? Just Daniel. Who wants to give it a shot?
I was just gonna say that I was looking at it, I was reviewing what you were explaining, and so thinking a lot about it when I joined my shot.
Yeah, hop into the code editor and we'll just work through it line by line. Like we'll make sure that we don't move to the next line until the current line is correct, just so we understand everything about the code. And I don't know if Liz or Tiffany want to hop in. I know Angel, you're typically working on a solution on your own. Are you thinking about a solution or?
Yeah, I'm working through it. I'm doing okay.
Okay, cool.
Haven't found it yet.
Cool, cool. How about you, Liz?
I have my VS Code open
Okay, cool.
on my stuff. But
Doing the same thing.
I'm
trying to
observing.
get to-
Cool, cool.
I'm doing the same thing, so I'm trying to hop into the live share.
All right, cool. Yeah, once you come in here, we'll just start working through the line by line. Just one line at a time. Yep.
Okay, it said something about the session expired. Which one did you want me to click on?
It's the last one.
Last one? Okay.
Today at 8:20. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'm in.
Cool. Cool, cool. All right, so since you two are in here, I want you two to alternate between writing lines of code. So you don't have to understand JavaScript syntax perfectly. Just give it a shot. Type some code. I'm hoping you make mistakes. If you make mistakes, you're gonna learn faster. So that's when you receive those errors. That's when you're really getting the signal of like, I need to improve, you know, like your brain is telling itself like, I need to do better, I need to improve. And so that's where the improvement happens. The improvement happens in the mistakes. If you make logical errors, if you make syntax errors, that's totally fine. That's what this is all about. So who wants to do line 7? T, you want to give it a shot? This first line?
Yes, I give it a shot.
All right, cool. T or Tiff?
You said Tiffany or T?
Either or. Tiffany, you could give it a shot since you spoke up first.
Okay.
So we're just, so you're just creating a map to store the frequencies. So forget about to store the purpose of the map. The only thing that matters is just create a map. So how do we declare a new map in JavaScript? There's an old way of doing it where you just use an object, and there's a new way of doing it. And the new way of doing it, you actually use the new keyword.
Create a map?
Yes.
See, I never did anything like this in JavaScript.
If you have no clue,
I have no clue.
so I would say either Google it or ask ChatGPT. How do you create a map with ES6?
Oh, create a map with ES6?
Yeah, how do you create a map in ES6? And you should get the answer.
ES6. So what's the difference between ES6 and JavaScript? It's just JavaScript, right? It's still JavaScript?
Yeah, ES6 is just like the standard that most people are using now.
Okay.
Can I give it a
Yeah.
shot?
Yeah, go ahead. Give it a shot.
Let my map camel case equals new map, and then parentheses.
Go ahead.
In parentheses.
Go ahead. Type it, T.
Oh, me type it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw it. Yes,
Thank
go ahead. I was able to find it.
Oh my god, I can type.
So you're gonna check her then, Tiffany, and tell her if she's right.
My map. Okay. And then colon.
Perfect. Is this right, Tiffany?
So my question is, what do you put between the parentheses? Don't you put something in there, like a value?
No, not if you want to initial, because we want to fill up this map with the nums array. I believe you could just pass the nums array right into it, but we want to be explicit. I want to give everyone experience just like iterating over nums and storing the values inside a map. So I want you guys to get experience with that logic too.
So I have a question about
Is she correct though, Tiffany? Is this right? Go ahead, T. What was your question?
Yes, she's correct.
Cool. T, you had a question?
If you're talking to you, you're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, I was on mute. Oh, I was talking the whole time. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let my map equal my new map, and then I was thinking we can put something like this. what I don't know where.
Yeah, nah, you don't have to do that. The problem with doing that is if you wanted a map that looks like this, yeah, there'd be no way for you to set the values. We actually have to iterate over num so we could set the values. If you wanted to, you could pass the array into a set, but then that would eliminate some of the elements and only keep the distinct ones. For this problem, we actually have to iterate over nums. We can't just pass nums. We don't have enough information in the array to build the map that we need. The only thing I would say with this is my map is a very generic name. What we're storing here is frequencies. So the frequencies of the numbers. So I would say, just to make it a little more clear, I would just call it frequency map. But besides that, perfect. Good job. So
I'm so proud. Before you go on, can I just put let freq when map, or can I? Do we have to add the whole frequency, or does it matter?
no, I just write it out because it's more clear for me. Like I like to write code in a way that everybody understands it. That there's no question.
You want to think about, like, in a real world situation, if you're writing like crap tons of code, you want to be able to go back and know what you're talking about.
Yeah. If
Freak something, you might be like, what's that mean?
yeah, freq map. What's a freq? Like there. So, if you don't, even if you come back and you're like, oh yeah, there's my frequency map. Someone's gonna be like, freq map. They're gonna have to read comments. If you could write, the goal is to write code in a way that it reads like English, in a way that's as efficient as like the other efficient code. If you could do that, that's like, man, that's the goal right there.
It says create a map to store frequencies.
Yes.
So when we're creating a map, we can put let, not var. We're
Yeah.
not creating a variable. We're creating a. What are we creating? We're creating a. We're declaring something, right?
Yes. I would actually use const, honestly. Just for objects, I use const. Just so nobody could, const is going to make it so nobody can modify the values in memory. So once this object is in memory, if the program's running and this map is in memory, then const won't let this map change. Like this map is in memory, it's staying in the spot that it's in memory, whereas with let, like you could overwrite that place in memory. So this just locks it in. I feel like it's better security if you write const. But all right. So next line of code. So we want to iterate over the nums array, storing its frequencies in our map. And so let's just not think about storing the frequency. Let's not think about this part right here. Let's just think about iterating over the nums array. So
Okay.
if you're like, I don't really know, feel free to do a Google search or ask ChatGPT. How do you iterate over an array of integers, for example? Or feel free, if you have an idea or you just want to wing it, that's totally fine too. Cool. So we have a for loop.
Is it okay if I start this?
Yeah, do your thing. Write it out.
So a for loop is going to take 3 parameters. The first is an iterable variable, so we're just going to call it I, set it to 0, so it's going to start at 0. We're going to say while I, this is the condition, so while I is less than numbers dot length, so we're going to take the length of numbers, and we're going to check if the I is greater than that, or less. Yeah, while I is less than numbers length, then we're going to keep going. Otherwise, stop. And then we're going to do I++, which just adds 1 I each time. I'm sure everybody has seen seen for loops before. And then that pretty much takes care of the first part of that. So I'll stop there.
Cool. You could go ahead and finish off this line if you want.
I can try, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. I'll copy paste what I have here.
Okay.
Do you want to console.log it before you go on?
Yeah, we could go ahead if you want to just see what we're getting here. Let's just say we console.log nums I, just so you could see what this for loop is actually targeting when we use nums I. We are going to, so if I do node 1, you can see that it's printing out 1 3 4 1 2 3 1. So it's printing out each of the values.
Everybody get the for loops.
All right. Did you see that, T? I know you wanted to check it out. What it printed out?
Yeah, I saw it. It was 1 2 3 4. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think this is the next line of code right here, where we take the frequency map and then use the set command with the nums I. So we're taking the current value and setting it into the map. I'm not sure if that's right, but I think that's what I found.
Yeah, so the set method is going to take 2 arguments. The first argument is going to be the property, and the second argument is going to be what you're actually setting it to. So if it's the first time you're encountering 1, you want to initialize it to 1. But if there's already a 1 in there, then you want to increment it to 2. If there's already 2 1s in there, you want to increment it to 3. So set is going to say, like on the first iteration, it's going to say 1. Does the 1 exist? Or this is basically just saying set 1 to what? So the first argument is saying like what you want to set, and the second argument is what you want to set it to. So if you're doing set nums I, you're setting 1 to what?
I thought we were doing the for each method.
This is a for each, and this is literally the same thing, same functionality. Remember how we did writing HTML straight into the file or rendering JavaScript separately? Like we use those 2 different methods. Mm-hmm. Same thing here. The same thing is happening. It's just a different way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the for loop is the same as the for each. It's just a different implementation. All right, so if we're gonna do for each, we want to do for each num. We want to do this. So, and another method we could actually use is let const num of nums. So for each number of nums. My bad. For const num of nums. So this is the same thing. It's going to iterate over the nums array. It's just going to give you a more clear word to use. And then, so you could do something like if the value already exists, then increment its value by 1. Else if it's already in our object, or else if it's not there yet, like if this is the first time we're encountering the number, then set its value to 1. But this is 5 lines of code, and there's an easier way to do it. So I'm going to let you guys think about this for a second, but I'm going to go ahead and just say frequency.set. So frequency map.set. We're going to set the num, right? So the property we want to set is the num, and we want to set it to either the value that already exists plus 1 or 0 plus 1. So it's either going to be like, let's say the value that already exists there is, let's say we've encountered the number 1 twice already. So 1 is set to 2. We want to set that 1 to 3. So we would take the 2 plus 1 equals 3. But if we haven't encountered it yet, if that number doesn't exist, so let me just draw this out a little bit. So let's say we have the 1 here and its value is already set to 2. So we have the 1 and it's set to 2. We want to do 2 plus 1. So we want to return 3, right? So how do we get that 2 plus 1? And how do we write it in a way where, what if this 1 doesn't exist yet? Then we don't want 2 plus 1. We want 0 plus 1. So we want to initialize the 1 as 0. And so what I did was frequency map dot get num. So this is going to get the value that exists here. So if it's 2, it's going to get that 2. It's going to replace that with 2. So either the value if it exists or 0. If this is undefined, if this 1 isn't here, like it's our first iteration of the map and there's nothing here, then frequency.map get the number is going to return undefined. And so we would just do 0. And then we do plus 1. So we're setting whatever the number is to, if the number is already there in the map, to whatever its current value is, plus 1. Otherwise, if the current value isn't there, we just do 0 plus 1. So this is just a way to make the code a lot easier instead of doing 5 lines of code for if else kind of thing. All right. And you could even clean it up a little bit more and make it 1 line of code. All right. That should, yeah, so const for every num in the numbers array, set the frequency maps to the number and set that property to either 1 if it's not there yet, or its current value plus 1. If there is a current value, if frequency map.get num returns a value, like let's say we've already encountered 1 2 times, so you do frequency map get 1, it would return 2, so the value that lives there, and then you would never reach this 0, because if this returns a truthy value, you'll never get to that 0. It'll just take that 2 and add it to 1. If this comes back as undefined because nothing lives in the map yet, then it'll execute this, or it'll continue looking for a truthy value. So it'll be 0 plus 1, and it'll initialize that first value as 1. All right, so this is probably the easiest line of code in the whole solution. Create our result output array. We're just literally initializing an array, an empty array. Yes, perfect. Perfect, perfect. Now I can uncomment this because we have a result array. Cool. So this code all in here is how we get from an empty array to this array. So the first thing is we iterate over the map. Let's go ahead and console out the map so we can see what it looks like after we run that for loop. So if I go ahead and you can see that our map looks like this. We have a property 1 with the value 3, property 2 or 3 with the value 2, property 4 with the value 1, property 2 with the value 1. So, all right, so we iterate over our map. So we want to iterate over this until it's empty. And to find out the length or the size of our map, it's just map.size. Obviously, it's not map because we're using a different identifier for our map. But this is essentially, we want to make sure that this right here is greater than 0. So, and it's just a simple loop here. So this, I wouldn't use this type of loop, and I'll show you why. So let's say we have our map here. Let's say we have our map and I equals 0, right? So we are going to iterate over this map, right? And we're going to take a 1, a 3, a 4, a 2. We're going to decrement them. We'll actually remove this because their only value is 1. So we have this, then we increment I to 1, and then we do it again. So we store a 1, a 3, we remove our 3, we decrement 1 to 1, then we increment I to 2. Now you can see how I is greater than the size of our map, but we still have values in our map. So we'd actually break out of this for loop before we're able to push this last one on. Does that make sense?
I'm still trying to understand the iterate over. Yeah. Okay, I think so. Okay. Yeah.
So if we do this here, you will frequency map dot map. This is a frequency map. Map is a method I use mostly on arrays, but I'll go ahead and write it just so you know. So basically, this is what we want to do here. We just want to know when the size of the map is 0. So what I'm going to do is just a while loop, while frequency map dot size is greater than 0. Run all this code inside of here. And then eventually it's going to come to a point where there are no elements left in frequency map, and in that case we'll break out of this loop. So with the for loop, we would actually break out of frequency map. We'll break out of this loop before we're able to exhaust the frequency map, we'd end up with 1. Depending on the size of the map and I, it's possible that I could be like 7 and frequency map could still be like 5. You know, so with the for loop and I, you're not going to be able to track when frequency map dot size becomes 0. So we just want to run this until there's nothing left, until we exhaust it, regardless of I or any other variable, because we're going to be right here deleting from the map. Eventually it's going to come to a point where we delete our last property from the map. And when we delete that last property from the map, we want to break out of here, and we will break out of here. With the for loop, it was just we would never have broken out of that. Or we would have broken out of it, but we would have broken out of it too early, essentially. So the first thing we want to do is create our row. This is, again, a very simple line of code. If someone wants to go ahead and do that.
I'll be right back.
Oh, it's 9 already right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type out this iterate over map. Let's see. So we'll go ahead and we'll create a row. We're creating our new array. You could call it row or you can call it subarray. But I'll call it row. And then we want to iterate over our frequency map, extracting one property at a time, basically. So what I'll do is for const num of frequency map. So for each number in frequency map, we will iterate over this. And then we will push our current number onto our row. So row dot push num. If our count equals 1, then we will do frequency map dot delete num. So we'll actually delete that property entirely. And if it's greater than num, then we'll just use this set again, and we'll set the num to count minus 1. But how do I access this count without calling frequency map dot get num? And the way I do that is by extracting it out from here. So as I iterate over this frequency map, each iteration is going to contain a number, so the property, and a count, so the value. Because we're iterating over a map now, we're not iterating over an array. We're actually going to have access to 2 values, and I do that with destructuring like this.
Okay, question. So the number is like the first value pair, or the key value, so the key, and then the count is the value?
Yeah, key and value, yep. Just with different names. And so this is actually reducing its value by 1. And then after this for loop, we want to push our row onto our output array, because this is basically building our row. And then we want to do result.push row. So we actually want to push our row onto our output array. And that should work. Let me test this bad boy out. All right, so this is our output here. So we have a subarray of 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 3, and 1. So I want to challenge anyone. I know this was a medium. I don't typically throw mediums out there, but you guys have been doing great lately. So I was like, let me throw a medium that's on the easier side out there for everybody. I want you guys to do this. If you're like, what the heck is going on here? I don't understand this block of code. I don't understand this. It's okay. I remember it took me a long time to really start wrapping my head around mediums too in the competitions and that sort of thing. So one thing you could do is post it into your code editor, and you'll see this little red dot on the left side. Just click that red dot. And then go down here to run and debug, and click run and debug. And then I'm going to use Node.js to run and debug, but you can see this yellow arrow is starting on this function, and if I press forward, it's going to drop down to my first test case, find matrix with this one. I'm going to press down because I want to step into the function, and then I step into the function. And once I step into the function, now you can keep track of everything here. So I have my frequency map. It's already declared. It's just not initialized yet. I also have access to my numbers array. I have my result. So it's declared, but it's not initialized yet because we haven't reached it. And then I have my this object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press step over. So I move to the next line of code, and you could see that frequency map, this line of code executed. So you can see what frequency map looks like after this was executed. It has a size of 0, and nothing has been added to it yet. But then we reach this for loop, and this for loop is going to give us a new context. And so as I move forward through this, this is a new block that we're in right now. The first number is 1, because the first number in our array is 1. So you can see now we're running this block of code right here. And if I move forward again, number is undefined, but we just ran this block right here. So you can see where this yellow triangle is. That's where it's pointing to. So the previous line of code that ran was frequency map.set num to frequency map.get num 0 1. And you can see that now our frequency map looks like this. It has a property of 1 with a value of 1. And now this yellow arrow is figuring out what the next number is. So the next number, you could see, the next number is 3. So this undefined is going to change to 3. And now, same thing. We're running frequency map.set num with this. And so you're going to see we're going to add another property to frequency map. So you can see, boom, we have 1, and we also have 3 now. And the size is 2. Num is undefined because we just ran that line. Hey.
Hey man, I wasn't able to do it, but I gotta go because I have a condo meeting.
Okay, cool. I'm going to post the video, so if you want to check out this solution as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
But it is a challenging one, though. All right, have a good one, man. All right, I'll see you soon. So, yeah, feel free to... this skill right here of just debugging is a super important skill that you're going to have. There's going to be times where you come across code where you just don't understand. This is actually how I started with data structures and algorithms. It's very, very tedious. But I was like, so if I was starting all over again now and I was debugging and I, put my little red circle, I started my debugging. And I was like, okay, I see that num is changing and I see that I'm iterating over the array. I see that frequency map is changing, but like, what is this doing now? Oh my goodness, I wish ChatGPT existed when I first started. I would just post this into ChatGPT and say something like, what is this line of code doing step by step? And boom. This line of code is part of a JavaScript program, and it shows you exactly step by step.
So when you talk about debugging,
Yes.
it's like fixing the errors, right?
Not necessarily fixing the errors. It's a tool you can use for fixing the errors, but it's also a tool you could use to just step through your code line by line and see what's changing with each step.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when
Because that's
when I
something that I have never been taught. So about the debugging, so I hear that a lot, and they said a lot of jobs out there want you to know about debugging, but I've never been taught that.
Yes, yes. So let me show you how to just get it started one more time.
Okay.
So we're in our file with our function and our test cases, right?
Yes.
And this is the function I want to debug. This is the function I want to walk through step by step, right?
Okay.
And so see these red circles?
Yes.
I could choose where I want to start debugging and click that. Now line 5 is where I'm going to start debugging. Since I put this red circle. You could put an end too. Like you could do like until there. Like here to here kind of thing. But basically put it where you want to start debugging. You have your Explorer, you have search, you have source control, and you have run and debug. So click on run and debug. Click on run and debug here. And then it starts. And so you can see that right now the yellow arrow is pointing to the function because the JavaScript is just processing this function. It's like, oh, look, a new function. Let me process this. So you go ahead and click, just step over. This is literally just the next step in the code.
Okay.
So boom, you click that. The next thing that's going to happen after JavaScript stores this function in memory is you're going to run your test case. Now, I actually want the debugger to jump into this function, and to jump into this function and start executing it line by line, you want to step into. So boom.
Oh wow.
Once you step into, now you're inside the function, and you're going to be able to do step over one by one. So if I click it, I'm going to be able to click it until we're done iterating over this nums array. See, I'm just clicking it a bunch of times, and the frequency map is changing.
Okay.
You're able to just step over your code line by line without it just like running all at once, and you just get an output.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So if your code is working, like everything is outputting the way that you want it to output, and you're like, all right, I know for sure the problem is somewhere between here and here, then you could run and debug just between here and here.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it'll make it real easy. But yeah, that's the solution. That's how it works. I'm going to go back to something a little simpler tomorrow. I want to make sure that everybody's able to get their hands dirty and, you know, type some code without me having to walk through it step by step. And I'd like to hear everybody else's solutions as well. I just wanted to throw this out there to see who was ready and that sort of thing. So tomorrow we'll circle back to like arrays, string problems. I'll find a problem that's really good. Since I went with promises yesterday and a medium problem today, tomorrow will be lighter for sure. I'm going to find a pretty simple one for everybody to work through.
I have class